Everybody, microphone check, 1, 2. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming out again to another Bitcoin Open Blockchain meetup. We've got, I think, a new record here in San Diego for RSVPs and possibly attendees. So thanks, everyone, for making it out, making it a great event. Welcome to our home here at Edge. How many people here have it as their first time coming out to one of our meetups in San Diego? Oh, awesome. A lot of people getting involved. Quick show of hands. How many people of those people who are making it out here are what you would call relatively new to Bitcoin and looking to learn more? Cool. So you're going to learn definitely something from the speakers here today. But just as a heads up, we also have a help desk around the corner in the conference room. You'll see a sign back there. Any point, we'll have someone there the entire time that can help you answer any questions about Bitcoin, get you set up with a wallet, show you how you can acquire some Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. So take advantage of that. It'll be there throughout the meetup event as well afterwards during the networking time after the speakers kind of wrap up. So quick introductions. My name is Paul Pui. I'm CEO and co-founder of Edge. As I'd mentioned, this is our office, our home. We've been doing or hosting this meetup now since about 2015 when our company had started off. It's obviously had its ups and downs, great attendance. And then we hit a bear market, and suddenly we have about a dozen people showing up. So I guess we're not in the bear market yet. You guys are still coming in droves. Happy to hear, happy to see. Just as a quick intro on our company, if you haven't heard of Edge, we're a self-custody exchange. We let you buy, sell, and trade Bitcoin and dozens of other cryptocurrencies. But that key word is self-custody. You own your keys, you own your funds, you have full control. No one at Edge knows even how much money you're holding inside of our app. We take privacy very, very strongly within the company. We try to build technology and tools that help elevate privacy and autonomy. So definitely give it a try if you haven't. Edge.app. It's really easy to find. Download it, give it a shot, and send us your feedback. This event is also sponsored by several other companies. BitRefill, a great way to actually use Bitcoin in your crypto, letting you buy various gift cards and phone top-ups all around the world. Their development team is also on the forefront of Lightning development. They're great. We're going to hopefully get them out to speak here at some point in time. We've known the co-founders over at BitRefill since about 2015. Sergey has been a great friend. And as well, it's actually an integrated partner inside Edge. You can use BitRefill inside of the app, integrated such that you don't have to copy and paste addresses and QR codes. You just kind of pick how much you want to buy of a gift card, confirm it within the app. So it's a great integration. As well, another sponsor is Coinstructive. This is Krish Ghoshang here. If you're looking to build a company in the crypto space and need anything from compliance, money transmission licenses, fraud investigation, he's your man. Definitely, he's been in the space for a good number of years as well, since I think 2015, 2014. So well connected and very knowledgeable in the industry. As well, we have Andrew who's doing our AV. If anyone needs any audio visual services, you got a wedding coming up, you've got an event, you need a photographer, videographer, video editor. He's been covering this meetup now for several months, volunteering, so definitely show him some support. I think, is that all I needed to announce, the sponsors? Yes, that's it. But we do have a few other announcements from Madison, who heads up a lot of our in-person, in-office events, as well as our HR. So I'll hand it off to Madison. Thanks, everyone.
Yes, thank you. You can keep, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I do have a couple announcements. Edge is hiring. We have 5 positions open, 3 developer positions, full stack, front end, and a smart contract position open, as well as a financial analyst and it's 4. And a support agent. Yeah, we're looking for 5 people at the moment. I'm your girl. I have business cards here, so if you know someone or you are someone who's looking for an awesome company to work for, let me know. We are also, I do want to announce the help desk. So we have the help desk set up in the conference room. If you want help on all things crypto, anything Edge, go to them tonight. If you're a beginner, expert, and you just want to ask some questions, that's a great place to do it. We also have the help desk set up downstairs at Portal Coffee every single Thursday morning. So, it's all good and fun to call a support agent, but be able to talk to them in person is what we want to provide you guys. So every Thursday morning we have someone downstairs. And lastly, I know we all love crypto and Bitcoin. We do have an opportunity for someone in here to win $50 in Bitcoin. So I have some QR codes around Don't forget to enter that. And yeah, without further ado, let's get this thing started.
Hello, everybody. My name is Chris Groshong, and I'm going to be the moderator this evening. Lucky me. And I'm here with our two distinguished guests, Dylan Olson of NFTY Labs and Natalie Brunell. So, first off, let's make this simple because we need to get to know you so we can really dig in today. And this is actually kind of a first for us. So typically we have speakers, and our speakers are doing presentations. And this is kind of a nice change of pace where we get to sit here and have real conversations. You get to be a part of that. And then we'll talk for about 40 minutes or so, and then we'll do some extended Q&A. So think of your questions, hold them to the end, and then we'll try to get through as many of them as we can. So first off, let's go ahead and just start. Dylan, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the crypto space?
Sure thing. So Dylan, I am Director of Marketing for NFTY Labs. And I got into crypto in 2016, like most people. I was just getting back from a short stint in Japan for about a year. Had a little bit of money, didn't really know what to do with it. Had never really invested in anything before, and definitely knew that I didn't want to just keep it in dollars. I didn't want to put it in a savings account. Was getting a little bit more privy to trying to make money through investments, but stock market wasn't too sure about, right? So what was the natural thing? Gold, silver, maybe. Explored it, had already invested in some silver, but then Bitcoin kind of stood out as kind of the peak, as the new thing. Obviously coming from the generation that I come from, we were born online, so it just made sense to kind of transfer over to the money online, and dove into it and got just sucked in, man. Like just totally in it, total degen. Traded just about everything. I mean, Bitcoin was the tip, was the start, right? But then ETH and BNB and kind of just rolled over into that and kind of became a fan of just crypto in general, and I love it and have been here ever since. And that's pretty much the short story.
Cool. Well, awesome. Thanks for sharing. Natalie.
So I host a podcast in this space, and prior to that, I was a broadcast journalist for more than 10 years, and it was during one of my news stints in a city in Northern California, Sacramento, where I heard about Bitcoin from people that were investors, and I really didn't understand what it was. As many of you, you need like a couple of exposures and a couple of touches with Bitcoin before you really start to think maybe I should purchase them. And I think I was predisposed to Bitcoin though, because my family is first generation here, really struggled financially, so I was always a really big saver. But my family, coming from Eastern Europe, they like saved in cash, like most people that are middle class or low income. And so I never really understood the stock market. I didn't know how to invest, and I slowly started to learn about Bitcoin. And
The ghosts got too close.
At being a reporter and a journalist and an investigator for so many years, I was really documenting a lot of the problems that this country was facing. And a lot of them were problems that my family had faced. Like, every single year the goalpost kind of moves further away from what is affordable and how you can afford retirement and how you can take care of your family. And I just felt like there was always this feeling that the system is very broken and people were getting left behind, and no one really understood why. I certainly didn't. And so I would report on these stories and meet all these folks that sorry guys. So I would meet people.
It's messing with you.
1, 2, 1, 2, testing. I would meet people through my stories, and they were struggling because what do reporters report on? Not good news, right? Bad news. So growing poverty, homelessness, public corruption, civil unrest. people that I was interviewing, I just felt like, it shouldn't be so hard for the little guy. The system, capitalism is not designed to make everyone equal and everyone to just have the same income and the world is just a happy place. You have to work for it. You have to work hard. We all have different skills and motivations and really desires when it comes to social mobility and what we want to create for our lives, but we should have maybe access to opportunity that's a little bit more fair than it is today. And so when I really went down the rabbit hole, which took a couple of years to be perfectly honest, I became so passionate about it, and I felt like this was the fix to a lot of the problems that I had reported on and documented for so many years. And so I decided to pivot my career to basically sharing knowledge about Bitcoin, educating people about Bitcoin, and I now am grateful to do media commentary. So I went from being a reporter to someone interviewed on newscasts about Bitcoin, and I'm just trying to orange pill, both America and my former colleagues in media. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic because I always like hearing people's origin stories because when I first started, a lot of people have the same kind of origin story, and it's nice to hear that like people still kind of have the same like. It's not just about getting rich, right? For all of us, like this is about change, right? And this is about part of change that we can actually be a part of, and not just let it happen to us, right? And it's pretty exciting to be at this point in our lives, or in this time of our life, right? To be able to be a part of something as big as this. So Natalie, I'm going to ask you. Is there anything in the world that would keep you from holding Bitcoin, right? Like, is something like catastrophic perhaps, or maybe some events or something that might happen, but like, we all know you're pretty much a maxi when it comes to Bitcoin. And so is there anything that could persuade you to deviate from the orange coin?
I mean, I have to be honest, I don't think so, because as I have grown in my knowledge about Bitcoin, I've certainly strengthened my conviction. So I went from someone who invested a little bit to investing, half to investing the majority of what I have in Bitcoin. And I was one of those people as well who at the very beginning when I was learning, I was in different cryptocurrencies, and I did try to learn about stocks and options. And I was really just consuming as much information as possible about how I could invest for my future, because you can't save in cash, and it's just really sad the direction that our country is going in when it comes to being able to afford retirement. And so, no, I mean, I really believe that at this point, Bitcoin is essentially bomb-proof. I mean, I think that we saw this massive test when China banned it, and we lost, half of the hash rate overnight, basically, and Bitcoin is very resilient. It came back, and yes, it's volatile, and that's one of the most frequent questions I get asked from people that don't understand the space or they're new to it. They're very concerned about the volatility, but this is not a short-term investment. It's not a trade. I certainly don't look at it as one. I look at it as a very long-term investment, one that I hope will allow me to take care of my future family. And the U.S. could ban it, but they'll never stop it. They'll never kill it. I'll move somewhere else where, there's a more friendly jurisdiction to Bitcoin. I'm perfectly willing to do that. So no, I mean, I don't fear anything will shut Bitcoin down. I don't. Would they, tax unrealized gains? Sure. I mean, crazy politicians will do crazy things. But again, I would just move where there are more friendly leaders.
Awesome. So, Dylan, for you, it's a light variation of this question, because working in the alternate crypto space, right? So there's a lot of people. There's the maxis, and then there's everything else, right? And I was a maxi for a long time. And if you're a maxi, you kind of look at everything else that's over there. I'm not even gonna bother, right? But what is it that gets you out of bed every day and gets you excited for working with NFTs and NFT projects?
Oh, dude. Every day there is more and more news that comes out about NFTs, and it's a double-edged sword, to be honest with you. It is. But every single day, more and more companies come out and they say how they're going to start working with NFTs. So, for instance, Spotify recently just came out and said that they're going to start exploring NFTs. They have job postings online for people working in Web3. So that's a solid, okay, good. There's Spotify, and then there's FC Barcelona, and then there's things like Visa, and then it just, like, you could go down and down and down the list, and you see that they're coming. And that's why I say it's a double-edged sword, because they're either going to come and try and conquer when they come into NFT space, into Web3, into crypto, or they're just going to get absorbed. And I have a big conviction that they will get absorbed by the NFT space. I have a big conviction that NFTs are here to free us, and to not only free us but liberate us. Let us earn part of what is being earned by them, all through the power of NFTs, all through the power of being able to essentially give back to those who supported you most, the people who have brought your company up or your project or your organization through an NFT. You're able to then deliver right back to them and then share that wealth. And that's something that I think we've just been missing here in the United States for so long. I mean, when a company or a government decides to grow in a really big way and then they go and tax their people, well, what exactly are we getting out of it, especially when everything's deteriorating around us? How could we maybe be given more just through voting? So through voting we can be given some sort of return. And so just the possibilities of what NFTs can really become drives me, motivates me every day. And at the very same time, seeing, it's collectibles at the end of the day in some form or fashion, but it's collectibles that you really believe in, and everyone has their own form of value. And so it's cool to see that segmentation of value in all sorts of different ways, and everyone should be allowed to value whatever it may be, and then essentially find their group and then breed within that group, if you will, for lack of a better term, and then, grow and blossom. So that's what I love about it, man. It's just a unique space. It really is.
Cool, I like that. And so for people who don't know what NFTY Labs is, could you explain a little bit about what the company is and what they do?
Absolutely, yeah. So Nifty started off as a company or a project that looked to take NFTs and give them utility. We basically wanted to say that we would be able to token gate effectively an NFT. If you own this NFT, you then get access into something, whatever it might be. Discord channel at the time is where we started. Twitter or Telegram channel is where we started too. So only holders could get in. And the token gating thing went pretty good. It was wrapped up in Nifty Connect. But now we're kind of transitioning because we see so much more possibilities. There's POAPs. So if you guys don't know, POAP is Proof of Attendance Protocol. Basically, it means that because you attended, now you're whitelisted in a way to either be rewarded because you were there, proof of attendance that you were there, right? So now it's kind of transitioned into encompassing so much more ticketing, event ticketing. So now NFTs can become your tickets. Maybe NFTs become your driver's license, in a lot of different ways. So we're starting to evolve what NFTs can really become and what they can be used for, and that's what we really focus on. So we also have a token, the Nifty Network token. It's a utility token that will be woven into the whole ecosystem for NFTY Labs. That's what we do in a nutshell.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Natalie, I want to ask you if you could help, explain having this opportunity to explain to the people who may not really understand, what some of the common misconceptions of Bitcoin really are.
Sure. Well, I think there are a lot of misconceptions about Bitcoin. First of all, I think that, people associate it with potentially nefarious activity. Obviously there's a history of Bitcoin being used to purchase things on the dark web. But, when you really dig in, it's probably the most transparent monetary asset that has ever existed because there's a public ledger, which gives opportunity to forensic analysts to really trace payments and transactions. And I'm sure that's going to be a really growing industry as Bitcoin adoption grows. Obviously, there's the massive misconception that it's going to destroy the entire planet. And, I just want to say that I really admire the writings of Lynn Alden and Nick Carter, who do so much to educate people about the real energy usage and why Bitcoin's energy usage is actually so beneficial and contributes so much to society. I really do believe that our world
has enough energy for Bitcoin. It's just exhausted of the corruption and the awful politicians that we have. So, you know, that's a big one. I think we really have to educate, especially politicians who are making policy decisions and voting on potential legislation with regards to mining and accessibility to these industries. I just think that a lot of work still needs to be done because the narratives that are out there, especially on certain sides of the political spectrum, are just so misinformed. And it's really sad because I think the other misconception is that Bitcoin is a political instrument, and it's not, right? So regardless of what side of the aisle you are, there are so many great things to embrace about Bitcoin. You know, on the progressive side, it's financial inclusion. It is banking the unbanked. And if you believe in, you know, more conservative principles, then obviously freedom is going to be very important to you. Individual sovereignty, self-determination, and all the capitalist values that Bitcoin represents. So I really hope that Bitcoin actually bridges the political divide that we have in this country, because I think that at the end of the day, that divide is sown by just that feeling that people can't make it and they're frustrated and they need someone to blame. And politicians obviously love an opportunity to blame somebody or create victims that they could potentially help through government spending. And I think Bitcoin addresses a lot of those issues and returns us to an economy that's based on sound decision making and value and, you know, supply and demand and what you bring to the table. So, you know, I also think there's a misconception about Bitcoin being too expensive because, you know, people think you can't buy a fraction of a Bitcoin. So we need to remind people of that because you can buy $1 worth of Bitcoin. Yeah, I'm trying to think of others. I do my best to try to dispel misconceptions, but I'm sure there are many I'm not thinking of.
No, that's great because I think you have to hear them more than once to really drive home the point because you're being like, so a small follow-up to that is we see all the bad stuff on the news, right? But like, what is the overall percentage of that that's actually part of the real community, right? Like, you know, like how much of that, yes, there's nefarious actors, of course. We all know bad people. That's how the world works. But, right, what is that percentage that we see 100% of it on the TV or on the news or what we hear, but that's like 5 or 3% of what is actually going on in the community, right? So I think that's the thing that's hard for people to be able to tell the difference, right?
Well, yeah, and I've seen how the sausage is made. So, you know, that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about what I do, because definitely in the way that, you know, the business sort of structure has changed. The business model's changed within media so much just since I came in. Like, I'm a millennial. I entered into this industry when I grew up watching appointment television. I would watch all of the newscasts with my family, and I dreamt of being, you know, the next Diane Sawyer, or Oprah Winfrey, or Barbara Walters. And by the time I left college, everyone was online, and this sort of citizen journalism was emerging, and people were fighting for advertising dollars, and YouTube channels, you know, were making more money, some of them, than newscasts all of a sudden. And so when you change the business model like that, you know, newscasts are really struggling for eyeballs. And so, you know, they do profit and they do exploit things that are controversial, things that divide us. And that's really sad. And I think that that's a problem. And so I really love that Bitcoin kind of, again, can be sort of the bridge to that divide. But you have to get the right message out to both sides, kind of catered to their individual worldviews or what what appeals to them. Because just like in marketing, I mean, you really have to know who your customer or your potential your client is, because everyone responds to a different element or feature about Bitcoin that they personally really care about. And what's great about Bitcoin too is there are a lot of universal themes that I think it touches on that affect all of us, right? The idea that we can afford for our future, that we have hope for the future. Like, for me, the word hope is really important. The idea of like the American dream, being able to, you know, create a life that's better than the generation before you, than your parents had. So I love all of those things about Bitcoin.
Cool, thank you. All right, so this next section is something that I kind of came up with just before the meetup tonight from the questions. So the guests didn't really get a chance to even get prepped with this, so I'm kind of hitting this one from left field. So this will be fun, as much fun for me as it is for you guys. So it would have been like, so they both vastly come from, a wide range of like viewpoints, right? We have marketing, we have investigative journalism, and we have altcoins, and we have maximalism, right? So it'd be really easy to get into a debate tonight and talk about like what's better and why this and why that. But I felt like we have this great forum tonight, and so what I thought would be even better was to come up with like a couple of topics that we could hear their perspectives on that are kind of overarching, because we can all agree that regardless of whether we're a maxi or we're not, right, crypto has benefited mankind immensely, right? And there's a lot that it can do, and so let's talk about some of those different perspectives and how that can affect all of us. So the first thing I'd like to bring up is something near and dear to me and what I've built a foundation on, right? Like you can't build a foundation doing fraud investigations in crypto if people don't trust you, right? And one of the reasons, and so how do you gain trust in this industry, right? Well, one, it's over time, but two, it's about consumer protection. And I think in this industry, right, we've all known people or seen stories about people who have been scammed or defrauded in one way or another. So Dylan, I'd like to start with your perspective first on like how consumer protection is important to you and your customers, your clients, and the people who are using NFTY Labs.
Okay. Well, of course, so it comes down to one, security, right? And then at the very same time, you might be told KYC. We might be able to have to KYC people in order to protect them, but I don't agree with that at all, actually. I think people, I think people have the right to keep their information private, and I think that's a very important part of everything, especially what we do here at Nifty. Everything can get wrapped up into a wallet, and that can be your identity, and we only need that, and that's it. Like you have your wallet. We can essentially scan assets just to make sure that you have the one that we're trying to check for, and that's it. If you have it, you have it. We don't need to take a glimpse of anything else. Now, this is what I mean by things could be a double-edged sword, because they could easily come in and say, okay, everyone's going to get a wallet, and then we're going to put all your information on your wallet, and then when we check, we're going to check all of your everything that's on your wallet, and then if we don't like who you are, you're done. You're canceled out. So this is what I mean where it's a double-edged sword, but at the very same time, we also have the power to stay completely free and anonymous through that way, and we can access any gate, any portal, at any time, get into any event without anyone having to know anything about us. And then at the very same time, if you want to allow someone to know something about you, maybe you make that option, just like on Brave browser, right? You want to get ads? Okay, I'll click the ads, and you pay me in order for you to deliver me ads. So that to me is kind of a big key point of all of this. Really, is Web3, and it's very important to all of us. And at the very same time, just want to kind of put this out here because it's actually kind of important. There's a CBDC. This is kind of going off topic here.
No,
but the Fed has put out a paper, 35-page document on their CBDC. They effectively have some tyrannical power within it, and that's the writing on the wall that crypto's definitely here to stay, but it's also could be our enslavement. So they are asking the public to go there and put out your opinions. Please go do that. Put out that you say this is a horrible idea, what might be a really bad idea. If you agree or disagree, maybe you do agree with some of the things that they are trying to do, but they're going to try and Trojan horse it as this is really good for you guys. They're going to nationalize all of our money, get rid of the banks, essentially, and it's all going to be a government entity, and then they can do exactly what Justin Trudeau did to the Canadians out there. So, consumer protection, yeah, let's cancel that one right now. We have the power to do that, and that's going to protect all of us. So,
cool. Natalie, same thing to you. Consumer protection.
Yeah, so I think that this is one of the greatest challenges and greatest opportunities in the industry. And what I mean by that is, this is a completely new type of technology where truly, if you lose your seed phrase and you don't protect it, it's gone forever. No one will ever access it, and that's what's so amazing. I mean, I'm sure how many, probably million at this point, Bitcoin are just lost forever. So becoming your own bank, I think that's really powerful, and I think it's amazing, and I personally advocate for it, and I do it. But, I don't know if any of you guys have been in that situation where you're transferring your Bitcoin from an exchange to your cold storage, and you're like sitting there like really nervous. Like you're like, did it send to the right place? Is it gonna, post? It's really nerve-wracking, and you have to feel for, our parents or our grandparents where this is just a little bit too much. It's too intimidating. It's something that is probably, an impediment to adoption. And I think that there are going to be folks out there in every single country who do not want the responsibility of self-custody. So we can, do what we can to educate people about, taking your Bitcoin, becoming self-sovereign, which again, I advocate for because I am technologically very, I think, savvy in terms of my Bitcoin. But I think that there will be a lot of people who will need to use companies that will custody their Bitcoin and help protect it for them. Separately, when it comes to the scams, that's also a really big concern because as people learn about it, think about just how much time it takes to really understand Bitcoin and how many, people out there could say, this is a better Bitcoin. This is just like Bitcoin. This is the new Bitcoin. And I was speaking today with Anita Posch, which I don't know if any of you know her, but she's doing a lot of advocacy work and education work about Bitcoin in Africa. And she wrote a book called Learning Bitcoin, and she's been traveling around the developing nations and educating people on Bitcoin, and they're getting scammed in real time in Nigeria and Zimbabwe because people are coming along saying, yeah, this is a Bitcoin, but it's a different Bitcoin, and all of a sudden they're losing their savings, and for them that's literally the money that they use to feed their family every single day because they don't have a savings account, and or they're dealing with microloans. And so, there's education. I know that word gets just used so much in the Bitcoin space, and there's so many resources out there, but it's really paramount. We have to help people understand, and this is just a sign of how early we are because, the average person right now, maybe they have Bitcoin, but I guarantee that the majority of people who have Bitcoin don't understand how to keep it safe and are storing it in cold storage. So I just think there are a lot of opportunity, but a lot of challenges ahead.
Well, I'm glad that somebody like you is taking on education because it helps when you are more of a public figure, because I tried to do education 2 different ways and like even giving it away. And sometimes if you're not in the right position or too early, people are just not they won't listen and they don't want it yet. Right? So everybody comes along at a different point, and so sometimes you need somebody who is more polarizing to like, I'll listen to this person for 5 minutes, and that sometimes is enough to spark that interest and send them down the rabbit hole. So thanks for doing that. So Dylan, you pointed on something or touched on something that I'd like to revisit, which is sanctions, and then also the flip side of that, right? This is really kind of, it's not the first time this has happened, but it's the first time that the mainstream news has really covered the fact that crypto can be used for helping like displaced families and refugees and supporting the other side of a war that you don't believe in, right? And so how from your perspectives, like how does this affect from the crypto industry, and what kind of solutions can this provide?
I have not thought about this too much, but let me make sure I'm understanding the question.
Well, it's really, you don't really need to provide solutions. It's really just about like how your perspectives on like, and you kind of touched on it already about like the freedom around crypto, but like the sanctions and like specifically from like maybe an NFT side or like an altcoin side of things, where we see like, okay, how can this be beneficial, or what is the benefits of using crypto that can either help people right in times of need, or to stop people from moving their money for sanctions purposes?
Yeah. So, with crypto comes a lot of responsibility. Essentially it's supposed to be freedom, right? It is freedom to send money where you want to send money. It's borderless, it's permissionless, at least it should be. If it's not, question it. And we can get into the debate if does it have to be permissionless? Should there be some sort of maybe overarching governing body? But I don't necessarily want to get into that debate. But regardless, the whole point of it is to be able to send it to whoever you want to, whenever you want to. And you know what? If that might be helping a bad actor, then that might be what we have to do. That might be the necessary evil in order to essentially be able to free ourselves from the bondage of people saying how much we can and can't have. Because that's not where we want to be either, or to be able to shut us off whenever they want to be able to shut us off, right? And obviously, like you touched on, like the sanctions, like, oh, we're just going to tell Russia, hey, like, you're done. You guys are off the chain, off of SWIFT, essentially. And they're like, well, I don't care about SWIFT. Like that matters to us, and then they were able to essentially use Bitcoin or gold to kind of circumvent the US dollar. And that's a really good thing, because then that keeps people in check. That should keep the US in check. It should make them think, maybe I shouldn't be a jerk to somebody else, because they're just going to stop using whatever coin or whatever we're deeming as value, and they're going to start using something else. And then that's going to put you out of business. And that's the beauty of the whole entire ecosystem of crypto, because now there's a lot of things that we deem as value. Maybe you like Solana and the way they act, or BNB, or Chainlink. I mean, Chainlink's freaking amazing. I don't care who settles layer 2, Chainlink settles the oracles. And just want to throw that out there, shout out to them. And I think that's great, because we should have choice. I think we've almost forgotten what it is to have choices nowadays, because Disney owns everything. Ford owns everything, and we think we have choices, but do we really? No, probably not. So now we have a big choice, but with choices come a lot of responsibilities. Yeah. But it's up to us to hold that and hold ourselves accountable. Yeah. We're good enough for that. We're smart enough for it. Come on, we've come a long way. We've learned a lot, so let us do it.
You're right. It is a huge responsibility. Natalie, what's your take on the sanctions?
So I really think that there is an international commercial playing for Bitcoin right now in every part of the world. I think it's really amazing that we're watching history, and we're watching this global financial system cracking before our eyes that is basically held up by the US dollar as the global reserve currency, having this monopoly. And if you study just Putin in the last 10, 20 years. I mean, back in 2011, he was basically saying in interviews with Reuters that the US dollar is basically, the US is a parasite on the global economy because of the monopoly of the US dollar. And he was strategizing for many, many years. And I think that he was preparing his country for the ability to be sanctioned and have things like gold in his reserves. Would he adopt Bitcoin like some people wish? I mean, I don't think so yet, because he can't control it, and he can't, monitor and control his population through it. But again, it's like a real-time highlight of this system that we've been so accustomed to, and that many of our parents and our grandparents benefited from when the US dollar was very, very strong. But that being said, I think that it's amazing that people are able to help people like refugees in real time. Like right now, not only is Ukraine soliciting donations in crypto and Bitcoin, and I think has one of the largest treasury holdings of Bitcoin of any country, but people are literally able to send with no remittance fees and no delay money from one person here to someone in Ukraine to help them flee this emergency situation. And that's really powerful. It's a real-time use case of what you mentioned, being censorship resistant and permissionless and all of that. And then you also see governments that are seeing this as a real threat. That's why Trudeau in Canada obviously wanted the crypto exchanges, all of those assets to be frozen, which, going back to our last comment about consumer protection, well, again, sovereignty, self-sovereignty, becoming your own bank has some risks to it. But if you don't, you potentially could have your assets frozen. Some of the accounts that are associated with people in Russia have been frozen. And, I see both sides of that, because people in Russia are not necessarily for the war. They're just average citizens who lost 75% of the value of their ruble because of decisions made by political leaders that are not, in their control. And that's what's so frustrating about the system, right? Is there are decisions made by centralized authorities, by the few, that are affecting everybody and making life harder for everybody. And Bitcoin is that option out. It's that ability to opt out. So I think that that's really powerful. I think it's playing out in all different ways, in all different situations, and these geopolitical crises and events that we're seeing across the world. And I think there's never been a better time to buy Bitcoin. Unfortunately, obviously the price is not, I think, reflecting some of the value that's being highlighted across the world. But, it's still early. We have a crazy macroeconomic environment right now. We don't have a lot of liquidity. And I think that will eventually change. So, but, as far as sanctions, the U.S. is not as powerful when it comes to sanctions as it once was, and the U.S. dollar is not as strong either.
Those are very good points. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we've kind of been drawn on here, and instead of getting to that third topic, because I really want to get to your guys' questions tonight, I have a couple of quick kind of one-line answers that I'm going to kind of shoot at you guys. So kind of our lightning round, which reminds me, after the Q&A is about to wrap up, we do a lightning round for our guests. So we take 5 or 6, 7 people. So during towards the end of the Q&A, feel free to line up over there on the side of the stage, and you'll get 60 seconds to go ahead and give your pitch, whether you're looking for work, and no sales pitches. So otherwise the community will hound you. Trust me. But please, if you're working on something, looking for work, or just want to introduce yourself to the community, make your way up, or have an announcement that you want to make about something that you're working on, please find your way over to the side during the Q&A session. All right, so here we go. Quick, first thing, the question is going to be, what will the industry look like in 10 years?
Jeez.
Dylan.
NFTs.
Corporate man, I like that. Good answer. Natalie.
Oh gosh, in 10 years?
10 years from now.
Okay, so Bitcoin will be over $1 million per coin, which is gonna be awesome. So I'm gonna be on a boat somewhere, and I'm not gonna have any NFTs.
Oh. Bummer.
I'm gonna be living in the real world, and
No metaverse? Oh no. Oh. Will
Sorry.
you even be alive?
I'm really excited. I think we're gonna hit, just maximum velocity in a couple of years. I think it's gonna be at 50% of the population and more, and I can't wait to see that. And I'm gonna be really happy that even though I feel like I'm in late, being a 2017 investor, I'm still very early.
Awesome. All right. So, what fun events other than this one are you attending this year?
Man, it's a really good question. I think we have to go to BTC conference in Miami. So, yeah.
That's it. Any other ones on your radar?
Not necessarily. No.
No, just
yeah.
the Bitcoin Miami.
Very short term.
I like that.
Yeah, and typically I tend to send the CEO and COO places. I don't necessarily go myself. So currently they're going out to Dubai, and here I am in San Diego.
I like your choice.
Yeah.
Natalie, any fun events that you're attending this year that you want to let us know about?
Yes. Well, I'm going to preface this by saying that, so I came from a broadcast career where I literally had to get up at 2:00 in the morning to travel to, tiny remote places where just disasters happened and tragedies. And it was so miserable. And now I'm getting invited to places like Dubai and Turkey and Portugal to speak. So I'm going to the Bitcoin conference. I'll be emceeing the main stage, so I hope you're all going to be there. And then I'm speaking in Austin, Texas. I'm speaking in Turkey. I'm speaking in Portugal. I'm speaking in Toronto. I'm speaking in many different cities, Chicago. So I'm very grateful that this career is allowing me to travel, which I love, but in a way that's not so crazy and hectic and tragic.
Yeah, well, you definitely got your practice in, right?
Yes.
Because they beat you up, right? And it's behind the scenes, and nobody really knows, right? Because you only see them for 30 seconds at a time. Oh, well, everything's looks great, right? But it's the 5 hours that it took for that 30 seconds that no one really understands. So the last question that I have for each of you is, and Dylan, we'll start with you.
Okay.
If you had a magic wand,
Okay.
what would you change in this industry?
What would I change in this industry? Can I pick the regulators?
Yeah, you can pick anything you want.
Yeah, if I had a magic wand, I would just pick regulation right off the bat. I mean, clear, concise regulation back in, I don't know, 2016, 17 would have held us. I mean, we would have been a very different trajectory right now than where we're at. And I think that's really where it stands.
Like, because they
there's been
over-regulated or
Nope.
didn't regulate
There's
enough
been no
s-
clarity.
Right.
Sorry. So there's been just zero clarity on what is deemed a security, what is not deemed a security. And it's essentially held us back in innovation quite some time, while you see countries like Singapore just skyrocketing with crypto.
Yep.
And obviously now you have El Salvador, right? And like it's we're just behind, but maybe that's what they want us to think we're behind. Meanwhile, they're pulling some strings to make something happen. It's hard to say because we live in such a weird time where it's hard to really differentiate what's real, what's not real. Are we being told the truth, not being told the truth? So maybe I'll change all of that scenario, but I guess we just start there with clarity, regulation.
Poof, got it. All right, Natalie, if you could wave a magic wand, what would you change in the industry?
Well, I actually love the Bitcoin industry because it's the most capitalistic that I think exists right now. And it's really like what value you bring to the table, you're judged on. And there's just so much growth, and your innovation and your creativity and your drive really determines your destiny, which I think is fantastic. But what I would change is just actually, I just think education needs an overhaul in this country. And I wish it was easier to bring in Bitcoin education into mainstream channels, like everything from just secondary school and university to just the ability to teach people financial literacy. We need financial literacy in this country. Otherwise, the adoption of Bitcoin is going to continue to, be slow and trickle because you have to do so much work on your own, and that's really sad. So I wish that there was a way to inject Bitcoin into our education system that was easier.
Awesome, I like this.
That's good.
All right, so now it's time for audience questions. So let's get those hands. Oh, look at it. Pew.
Hello, everybody.
Hey.
How you doing? My name is Junior, and I didn't actually realize you were coming here tonight until I looked back at the email again just before I came. So thank you for being here. I recognize you from somewhere, so thank you also for being here too.
I get that a lot, man. I don't know. I don't know.
So my question is, I'm just gonna throw this one out here. What are your thoughts on Taproot and the possible use case for a more private, scalable Bitcoin to include the simple scripts that they might have to allow, smart contracts maybe on top of Bitcoin? If you guys are even prepared for that question. If not, it's okay.
I'll leave it to her. I'm not educated enough for Taproot. But yeah, I'm sure.
I'm definitely not an expert in Taproot. I did a short interview with Jimmy Song about it for Bitcoin Magazine, and so I kind of take from his notes that it's just really exciting that Bitcoin is attracting, the smartest developers who are working on ways to scale Bitcoin to make sure that transactions are more private, so that you can't track them as easily through these multi-sigs. And also just the idea of, people building on top of Bitcoin. There are companies that are really passionate about it, like Stacks, and if there are opportunities to have smart contracts be possible so that people aren't venturing into the Ethereum zone. That's great. But, for me, I'm most passionate about Bitcoin fixing the monetary problem. Like, there's a problem I see it addresses, and the innovation on top of that and the other blockchains and the other projects, I am a huge believer in free markets. And so, go forth and conquer and create great work. I'm just passionate about the money problem. So for me, Bitcoin is just great as it is. And I love the Lightning Network for scaling it. But Taproot, I think, will unlock a lot of potential. and I'm sure that, great development will happen in the space. But other than that, I'm not sure.
Thank you very much.
So I think what I'll do is I'm going to give you my mic so I can take that one and go around.
Hey, Natalie. Quick question. Earlier you were discussing like the misconceptions of Bitcoin and whatnot, and like one thing that I kind of struggle with is proof of or store of value versus, a currency. You said in 10 years Bitcoin's going to be $1 million, and a lot of my buddies who have crypto just consider it a portion of their portfolio. So I wanted to set the stage and get your general thoughts on store of value versus currency.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So my answer is different depending on where you are right now in the world where you live and what I think things will look like in 10 years. And so what I mean by that is right now in the United States, we have the concept of saving, right? I mean, before the traditional portfolio was, 60-40 stocks and bonds. Today, I think that's dead. I think that if you're buying bonds, you're what Greg Foss says, you're not the smartest individual. So here I think we have a real need for a reliable store of value that has infinite upside potential, right? I mean, literally a way to accumulate wealth for generations, which I truly believe with Bitcoin. But we have a very stable medium of exchange in the dollar, even though when you zoom out, take away the volatility, zoom out, Bitcoin's going like this, the dollar's going like this. And inflation is a definite concern, which I don't think is going away because the Fed is between a rock and a hard place when it comes to trying to fix it. But here, I don't want to give away my Bitcoin. I don't want to spend it. I want to save it because I truly believe that, like I mentioned, I think it's going to be $1 million a coin. Why would I want to spend it? That being said, I've visited El Salvador. I've spoken to people who are doing amazing work in developing nations. I've spoken to people who do work in Afghanistan. It is in real time solving problems as a medium of exchange, allowing people to subvert oppressive governments, allowing people to escape hyperinflation to the tune of 50 to 90% in their currency in 1 year. It's allowing them to avoid remittance fees and transact with their family overseas. So it's a powerful tool as a medium of exchange right now in other countries, and they need it as a medium of exchange. So I think that right now we're in this really interesting process of monetization where we're going from a collectible to a store of value to a medium of exchange, and eventually in 10 years, depending on what happens with the global reserve currency and how our whole system is being reworked with central bank digital currencies and China trying to come out with the digital yuan taking over the world, I think that Bitcoin will become a unit of account. And I think that as the price stabilizes and more people have it and are transacting in it and are accepting it, I think that certainly things will be priced in Bitcoin and more people will be getting paid in Bitcoin. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I don't see that as like a clear-cut answer right now because we're so early, and because here in the US, I think the use case is stronger as a store of value, whereas in the future, my hope is that for everyone, it'll be a store of value and a medium of exchange.
I guess I had a question about integration into the legacy financial system, but I'll give a specific use case, which is crypto-backed loans for mortgages that is partially backed by the property itself, but also some crypto. It has the potential to be far more secure than a traditional mortgage. If you go 50% loan to value, then even if your crypto drops 40%, you're still 80% loan to value, and your property, well, it's unlikely that would drop. So I guess I would say, how soon do you see that becoming available? You're more likely to know people who are working on that.
I mean, I think it's all going to happen very quickly. I know that there are already people taking Bitcoin loans out, and that space is growing very, very quickly. I don't know anyone personally that has done it, but I'm really inspired by conversations like what I've heard Michael Saylor talk about with Saifedean Ammous, just saying that he envisions a future where people, they're not selling their Bitcoin, they're taking out loans against it. And I'd be curious about it. I would like to know a little bit more. But you know, you have to be really careful because some people can get really underwater when you talk about lending. And I think that, you know, the price volatility is something that is a hurdle to that. And the more that we see it maybe increase in price and stabilize, and especially the earlier investors are probably going to be more apt to take those opportunities than the ones that come in later. So I'm probably just as curious as you to see what happens in the space, but I do think the developments and the growth of that industry, it will happen very, very quickly. I think we're going to see so many more companies emerge in just the next few years.
Technology. Okay. I had a question kind of for both of you, I guess. It was touched on a little bit with just the possibility of like other companies like Visa, existing companies and money coming into the space. You know, with Satoshi having built Bitcoin, whoever one or multiple people, it's kind of like it was anonymous, kind of like new money. It seems like, does it ever worry you guys that there's all this new money in existing or old money in existing corporations and people coming into the space and how that might affect kind of the future control of the space? Pretty vague question, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'll answer that first. It's definitely a concern, something I've thought about. I mean, if we look at Solana, 50-something% of them is owned by just a few huge investment firms. So something to consider that could be definitely a problem, but you know, greed kind of consumes greed. So I tend to have the thought that these guys are going to protect their money. They've made a lot of money, and we know how the U.S. Likes to endorse lobbyists. So what if these new huge hedge funds who are pouring all of their funds into crypto start now to lobby in order to make sure that everything is moving smoothly for them? And then what if that just turns into the Trojan horse to say, you know, greed kind of consumes greed? They're going to literally just run the old traditional system kind of out, and they're going to just breed this new traditional system in because they want to protect their investment. They want to make sure that Solana scales to what they want it to, and they're going to be able to extract every little ounce of value out of it that they can. But if that means that they're delivering actual throughput of 65,000 transactions a second, and it can transact borderless, then that's a pretty big win for us, in my opinion, and especially if it's kind of protected, and we know that we're all going to be able to send that money anonymously, and it's benefiting the world in a big way. So it's kind of what I tend to think about it there. You know, they're going to want to come in with their money, but they're also going to want to protect the investments that they do.
Just a real quick thing that I'll share is that I love that these companies are finally getting some competition, you know, and now they have to compete with a network that can transact with lower fees and maybe handle more transactions. And that offers people the opportunity to opt out of this system that is controlled by the few and controlled by corporations and oligarchs and the politicians that have them, you know, that are in their pockets. So I just think that this is really exciting, and with more, you know, adoption and more of these companies recognizing the value of Bitcoin, that's awesome for everybody, I think, because then policymakers will take it more seriously. More people will start to wake up to the headlines and say, maybe we should get some Bitcoin. And all of us who were earlier will all benefit from that as well, because let's face it, there are really no winners, or I mean no losers when you invest in Bitcoin, right? We all win because the price goes up, and we remove sort of the corruption of the old system. We wash away the system that's based on, you know, who you know and how much you have to spend. And yeah, I think it's great.
Test. Hi, my name is Brandon Taylor. Nice to meet everybody. Second time coming here for these events. Love these things. Great to listen to you too. My question is more for Natalie, and you're talking about Bitcoin or bust in Maxi. I'm curious about your thoughts on investing in the rest of the space. You think that Bitcoin is robust enough to carry the burden of all financial services, DeFi, further development, document storage, communication, medical data? It's got it all?
So I I am really passionate about Bitcoin because, again, I think that it allows the opportunity to rework our economic system on a global scale, and it allows us to create maybe a base layer, a monetary network that is based on something that's more fair and based on something that's real as opposed to manipulation. Because I think we live in a manipulated monetary society, which creates wealth concentration and creates the disparity and the divides that we see, which make me really sad because, again, I just don't think, especially living in United States, like a country based on freedom and the American dream, that that we should see life get harder and harder every single year and you having to work for money that's worth less every year. I hate that. And Bitcoin solves that fundamental problem. It's the only blockchain that is true money. It's truly scarce. It's truly decentralized. That being said, I'm a huge free market capitalist. Whatever people want to invest in and however they want to innovate in the space, I'm excited about it. Am I going to be skeptical about some of the projects? Am I going to be skeptical that everything needs a blockchain or a ledger? Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's going to be great risk and also great reward and great profits for those that, chose the right projects to invest in. Personally, what I just am most concerned about is not recreating the old system that led to so much just brokenness and lack of opportunity for the average person. And I just don't want to see centralized forces, basically encourage people to get into a space so that they profit because they were early and then they cash out and then someone's left holding the bag. I personally get, upset about that. But, are there going to be great companies that create NFTs or do DeFi or solve some of the problems of custody and, DeFi? Sure. And I really wish people luck with their investments, but personally, I just am really passionate about Bitcoin.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dan. I have a question for Dylan. You had mentioned at the beginning about NFTs, like, they're collectibles. You threw out that word, and then later on, you kind of had mentioned, like, what if your driver's license is an NFT or something like that? Those are two very different extremes, but obviously, it's an implication of the possibility of the technology. Maybe your car title is an NFT, or maybe your mortgage is an NFT, whatever. Even if there's still a bank involved, but. Is that so? Right now, they're just collectibles. They're just kind of trendy artwork. But is that something that you guys talk about at Nifty? The future, is this something that you guys are open to? Is this like floated around? Do you guys chat about this, like actual technology of actual possibilities of NFTs?
Absolutely. That's what we do. Is we just build around the possibilities of NFTs. And I don't know how many people are familiar with an NFT or what it is, but it stands for a non-fungible token, right? So it means it cannot be broken down. Bitcoin obviously can be broken down into, millions, right? 100 millions, right? So it can be broken down to 100 million, so it's, it's very cool, but then an NFT is just a single one, but then it also holds data within it, right? So then within that metadata, you're able to uniquely, identify what that is, and then it can be essentially assigned properties that can be also unique in itself as well. And because of that, you're able to just build and design quite interesting tech around it. So for instance, you can get time gated. So if you want it to be a ticket, it can turn into a ticket that then disappears after a certain amount of time. It could also turn into an access to certain areas if you wanted to, certain different portals. So there's a lot of different ways that you can go about taking an NFT and transforming it, and effectively that's what we're trying to explore. Governments are interested in it as well because obviously they would love to tokenize everyone and put them on a blockchain, and that's what I say is a double-edged sword because there really is almost unlimited power with what you can do with an NFT, what you can put inside of it, what you can store inside of it, how you can transfer it. It's easily transferable just like any other crypto. It's essentially a token, right? It actually is a token. It's not just a piece of artwork. It's a token that then points at the artwork. But what if it points at other things? If it points at a mortgage, it points at a mortgage. If it points at your driver's license, that's what it points at. And then those things can be stored on IPFS and hosted in a very secure way. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy the types of things that people are starting to explore with NFTs. one thing that really drove me once I found out what an NFT was, actually, I got started in NFTs because I looked at unstoppable domains. I don't know if you guys know that, but it's essentially domains, but NFTs. Like, so it's a .crypto, and then there's the ENS domains that are .eths that's kind of blown up lately. And to me, that just made so much sense. It was almost instantaneous. Like, dang, dude, what if I was able to get, .com way back in the day, But like Michael Saylor, like that's what he did. He made a lot of money off of that. He grabbed all the .coms, and before I knew that, to me that was a big deal. It's like, damn, that's really cool. And then it also transforms a little bit more than just being a domain, because then you can send crypto to it back and forth. So now not only are you buying, you're buying a wallet is what you're actually buying, and then it can, it has all this functionality, and then you can build a website on top of it. It's pretty mind-blowing, right? And like, that's freaking cool. And then you could take that and, man, it starts to get unlimitless, like limitless, sorry. So yeah, there's a lot of possibilities out there, and we're definitely exploring them, and we're only at the very beginning, very beginning. Yeah.
All right, so we have 2 more questions right here, and then while these are happening, if anybody wants to line up for the lightning round, please do that. Start to go and make your way up to the front now.
And we're going to do last chance for the giveaway. I'll put up the QR code up here.
Hello, my name is Tony, and so this is for both Dylan and Natalie. In the interest of promoting crypto in general, and fortunately I've been able to probably get 30 people into it. My dad as well, 86 years old. And so, part of what has happened there is I've listened a lot to Mark Moss. You probably know who he is. I've listened a lot to William Stickevers. He's a geophysical, astrological guy that finances and pays a lot of attention to the crypto space in a mathematical way, beyond what anybody seems to even comprehend. And so, with that said, the belief is, 1 million easily, 10 million in 10 years, no problem. But I wanted to ask if you'd heard of those folks, and if you do or haven't or could interview one of those guys, that would be very helpful, I think, in promoting to the world what's going on, because it seems like the inflation rate in general is just not recognized by most people. And that's the big thing that triggers somebody to say, well, I need to do something because my dollar's going down 15, 20% a year, and it's just junk. Yes. So, it's, and I guess I should say, in the end, for what I'm seeing forecasted, there's no doubt that crypto is going to be overwhelming everything. This is according to William Stickevers. And it's just a matter of the governments know this, and they're scared of it, and it's just going to take everybody learning more about what's going on. So anyway, if you get an opportunity to visit with Mark Moss or William Stickevers, I promote that idea.
Well, I'll speak to that. So Mark is a good friend of mine. He's been on my podcast a couple times, and actually my last episode is I asked a bunch of the leading thought leaders in Bitcoin: Robert Breedlove, Preston Pish, Max Kaiser, Mark Moss, Alex Svetsky, Alex Gladstein, a bunch of them, Bitcoin or altcoins. What do you think? What is your response to this idea of Bitcoin versus crypto? And they all had amazing responses, and Mark's was probably one of my favorites because, again, he talks about how Bitcoin really addresses that fundamental problem of property rights and money. It solves the problem of money. So he's fantastic. I love him. And you're right. I mean, he talks on his radio show every single week about the issues with inflation, and the numbers that they're telling us are not the real numbers, right? We all know that. We have to educate the greater public. I mean, the Congress just got like a 20% raise, so maybe that's a little bit closer to inflation since they're getting a 20% raise for their staffers. But yeah, it's a huge problem. It's a real problem. Your money is a melting ice cube unless you do something with it. And unfortunately, for so long, we were just accustomed to this idea that we have to take risk, or we have to, try to become day traders and stockbrokers on the side because our money was just losing value. And it doesn't have to be that way. And that's the important message that I think we need to get out.
All right, last question. Yeah, my name's Steve. And my question is, we all need more adoption. It's a pretty conscious theme here. My question is, to our NFT man, is San Diego, Oceanside, any of our cities looking into using NFTs, medical health records. I mean, we need something bigger than all of us telling their friends that Bitcoin's great, right? We need something else. And where we're looking for the tipping point. Where is it?
You know, tipping point, I don't know if it's here in the U.S., to be honest with you. You know, and it's unfortunate. Maybe NFTs do, because we're such a consumeristic society, so maybe NFTs kind of drive crypto in the U.S. a little bit further along, pushing it quicker. But I don't think the tipping point is here. You know, so I'm in marketing, right? And basically, I look at stats quite a lot. And right now, South America is a massive driver, and Africa is a massive driver. And then, no, Africa, Nigeria specifically, right? And then you have small pockets. Turkey is high on adoption as well. Indonesia, very high on adoption. But generally, South America is actually glanced over quite a lot, and it seems like they always are that way, and I don't know why, but they're transacting some of the most in crypto anywhere. And it makes sense because, like, look at Buenos Aires or Argentina's inflation rate. I mean, it's crazy. You can't even keep up with it. So I don't know if we're going to drive it here. I don't know if San Diego can drive it, but, you know, as a marketer, it's kind of up to me to say, like, hey, I really want to target this area, and that's what we're doing. We have an issue to push harder in the U.S., and we're doing it. You know, we're moving. It's just one step at a time, through the mud, and we'll just make it through.
All right. Well, I want to say thanks to our guests, Dylan Olson and Natalie Brunell.
Thanks, Chris.
Give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
All right. So we're going to start our lightning round now, and our guests will probably be around in the back too if you want to, like, hang out and ask follow-up questions.
How's it going, everyone? Thank you to our speakers for a great presentation. That was awesome. Thanks to the Edgewall team.